These Pfaff machines are some of the best domestic sewing machines I've ever used. And I don't think I'm going to keep them. Right off the bat, I've got disclaimers aplenty about this video. This is ostensibly a review of my Pfaff 260 and Pfaff 360 machines. This is probably going to be more of what I've been wrong about and what I don't like about them. And I want to say right up front, they're incredible machines. If you are thinking about purchasing one of these machines, if it fits your needs, it's a really fantastic machine. I also want to point out, I'm going to allude a couple of times to the fact that I'm probably going to sell these machines. Unless you live in Southwest Florida, there's probably not much point in asking me if you can buy these machines if you live in North Dakota or something. I have absolutely zero interest in shipping these machines. If you have questions about it, you can certainly post them in the comments section or send me an email. But the purpose of this video is not to advertise these machines for sale. They're not currently for sale. If this is your first time watching one of my videos, you might want to skip ahead a bit. For my subscribers, hey, how's it going? Sorry, I've been gone for a while. I think I mentioned in a previous video that I had a kind of a busy period for a little bit. Most importantly, my wife's milestone birthday, during which we went away for a nice long weekend in Key West. And I don't like to talk too much about the money part of this channel. Everybody knows that YouTubers can make a little bit of money and some people can make millions. I don't make very much money at all from this, but I was actually able to save up enough to greatly defray the cost of a weekend in the Keys, thanks to all of you for watching and subscribing and liking and posting comments, so thank you. But anyway, I appreciate your patience and got some big stuff coming up, so please stay tuned. There's more sewing content coming. So let's talk about these machines. I've had this Pfaff 260 the longest of any of my sewing machines. When I first became interested in sewing and started doing a little bit of research online, I identified this machine as one that I wanted to seek out and buy, and coincidentally I happened to find one relatively quickly and I bought it. And I've talked about this machine quite a bit in other videos, and I've been wrong about some of the things, at least one thing, and I'll get to that in a minute. I bought this machine for $150, and then I spent an additional $150 having it professionally basically rebuilt. When I bought this machine, it had the common problem that these machines tend to have, and I'll talk more about that in a minute. And also the tension assembly was bad, and so I had to buy one of those. I found one on eBay, I think, for like $40. So I've got about $340 into this machine. I found this machine a year and a half, 2 years ago on Craigslist in Colorado when I lived there, and I paid $40 for it. It also had the problem that these machines tend to have, and everything else was fine on it. And I repaired that problem myself, and in so doing caused more damage that I'm going to have to fix, and I'll show you that. This is probably a good time to talk about this subject. A lot of commenters on videos ask me if I can or why I don't do a repair or rebuild video on a particular machine or repairing a particular problem. I am not a trained or qualified sewing machine mechanic. I can take parts off and put parts back on with the best of them, but I don't really know what I'm doing, and I don't want to mislead anyone to follow in my footsteps. So I've done a couple of pretty simple repair things showing what I did and whether or not it worked for me, but I tend to stay away from really complicated stuff. That said, I'm going to show you what's involved with the repair on the common problem of these machines, but in no way should you do anything based on my instructions, because as I'll show you, I end up breaking stuff when I try to fix it. In my searching the internet for information about these machines, I have found that there's not a tremendous amount of information, and sadly I'm not going to add a lot to that today. There's just not that much that I can find about these machines. Here's what I think I know. So the Pfaff 260 is the flatbed version, and the Pfaff 360 is the... And the Pfaff 360 is the free arm version. That can be advantageous for doing things like shirt sleeve cuffs or small bags or something with a, a small opening, so that you can easily access hard to reach areas that might be more difficult or impossible to reach on a flatbed machine. If you watched my yoga bag video in which I used this machine, there was a mistake I made that would have been much more easily handled with this machine than with this one. Thanks. The 360 with the free arm also has a folding table so that it can function more like a flatbed machine. And the engineering on this table is just amazing. Overall, in fact, one of the things I really like about these machines is their sort of typical German over-engineering. I've been a... Hi. Okay, thanks, buddy. Good boy. I've been a fan of German cars for many years, and a lot of the same sort of brilliant engineering that I see in the cars, I find evident in these machines. These machines are pretty typical domestic sewing machines of the era. I think these came out in the early 1960s, but I'm not 100% sure of the years. Again, one of the advantages of something like Singer machines is that it's very easy to take the serial number from your machine and find out its manufacture date. If that's available, if that information is available for Pfaff machines, I've not been able to find it. And I haven't even been able to really pin down the years of manufacture for this series, the 260 and the 360. Not that it's not out there, but I haven't been able to find it. So, but I think late 50s, early 60s is about right. These machines are straight stitch and zigzag capable, and they have a set of embroidery cams to do a bunch of different embroidery stitches. What's interesting about these machines compared to other machines that I'm familiar with that do embroidery stitching is that the cams aren't removable, and you don't have to keep them separately and swap out a different cam each time you want to do a different stitch. All the cams are in the machine, and that may be true of some other machines. The ones that I have removable cams. I don't do any embroidery stitching at all. I don't know that I ever will. It's not really an area of interest to me. But if you are interested in doing that and don't want to worry about either buying a machine that the cams are missing from or losing the cams or whatever, it is kind of nice that they're all integrated into the machine. That does, however, complicate things when it comes to repairing the common problem that I'm eventually going to talk about with these machines. Everything on the exterior of the machine is metal. There's no plastic parts. For example, my Singer 237 has a plastic top, but the rest of it's metal. However, here's where I have to reveal a mistake that I have made repeatedly in videos. I, for some reason, have had the impression for years, even after owning one of these, and eventually two of them, that this was an all-metal geared machine and there were no nylon gears. Well, you won't be able to see it, but back behind here is a nylon gear, and as soon as I took all this stuff off to do the repair on this, it was obvious to me. And that information is pretty easily found on the internet. I don't know how I missed it. I don't know how much it really matters. When I first started sewing, and for a long time, up till now even, I've had this idea that you needed a machine that didn't have any nylon gears. The reasoning being that a nylon gear would, become embrittled with age or wear out or be too weak, and sewing through the tough manly stuff that I sew wouldn't be able to handle it. But I've got other machines that have nylon gears and they've worked fine, and I think it might be much ado about nothing. In general, yes, I still prefer an all-metal machine, especially if you're going to be using it hard and regularly as I do. But probable that it doesn't matter that much. So my apologies to anyone I've misinformed by mentioning in other videos that this machine is an all-metal geared machine. It is not. So a couple of things to talk about the engineering of this machine. First off, as you saw, the top cover of the machine is very nicely engineered to be very secure and beautifully integrated into the machine, and yet very easy to remove with no tools, which is nice if you need to make any adjustments. So I mentioned that there's a common problem with these machines, and really there's kind of two things to look out for. One is the drive belt is this cogged belt. It's a rubber belt with these metal, big staple-looking things that kind of act as teeth. I don't think that's as big of a problem as I was originally led to believe when I first got interested in this machine. At that time, I was under the impression that these were no longer available anywhere, and the only way to get them was if you found one that someone was selling from a dismantled machine or something. These apparently are still available. A commenter on a previous video informed me that they're available on the German eBay site. And you may have to speak or read German in order to do that, but I think I've seen them in other places on the internet. Are they easy to find? No. Are they cheap? No. But they are apparently still available, so if you find or own one of these machines and the belt is bad on it, all is not lost. However, it's not going to be a matter of running down to the local fabric store and buying a replacement belt. So it is something to look out for if you're looking at one of these machines for sale. You might want to carefully inspect that belt and make sure that it's in good shape. The more common problem that happens with these machines is the zigzag lever becomes stuck. Apparently, when these machines were manufactured and prepared for shipping, they coated the gears in a mixture of, I think, Vaseline and gasoline. Don't quote me on that, but some sort of mixture that was intended to be a rust preventive coating that, when it sits long enough, becomes a varnish. And typical of old sewing machines, they get used for a while and then eventually they get stuck in a closet and people forget about them, especially as we've entered into the modern era where sewing is not the daily task that it was in the 1950s and before. So it's very common for these machines to have a stuck zigzag lever. Unsticking it is not particularly difficult to do. You just have to clean the interface between the mechanism that I'll show you in a minute. But I forget what I used as a solvent to clean it, but I used alcohol or something. It's not a big deal. The problem is getting to it. A lot of this stuff has to come out. And in removing the things that you have to remove to get to that part, you have to take this shaft and hammer it out and then hammer it back in. And because I'm not very smart, I hammered it back in without even giving any thought to protecting this knob. So now this nice plastic, I guess, or Bakelite or whatever this is, knob has been shattered. I paid $40 for this machine. I found this knob for $40. So now it's an $80 or $40 sewing machine. So if you are looking for one of these, you find one on the used market, and if the zigzag is stuck, it's a relatively simple fix. If you are mechanically inclined, you can do it. If you're not sure, I would highly recommend having a professional take care of it for you. But it is an easy repair. The machine's not broken. It's probably just the mechanism has glued itself together over time. This assembly contains all the cams for doing the embroidery stitches. You can sew without this in the machine, so if you do need to take this apart to loosen the zigzag mechanism, you can make adjustments and make sure everything's working before you have to mess around with putting this back on. With the cam assembly out of the way, you can see the one nylon gear in the machine. There's also a better view here of the tooth belt. The shaft that gets glued together and makes the zigzag mechanism stuck is right down here, and all this stuff has to come out to get to it. Again, I don't want to show you how to do that because the way I did it ended up breaking some stuff. It's pretty simple to figure out if you're pretty mechanically inclined. If it's not simple for you to figure out, you should probably take it to a professional and have it done. I will give you one tidbit if you are going to try to do this yourself. There's a spring, one end is hooked here, the other end is hooked way down at the bottom down here. If you remove the spring from the hook here in order to remove this assembly, which you need to do, and let it go, that spring's going to shoot down on the bottom. Getting it hooked back up was one of the hardest things I've ever done in my life. Well, that's not good. Well, that's part of the joy of working on vintage sewing machines. Unfortunately, sometimes you get the wrong part and you can't just run down to the store and grab another one. So this machine will be out of commission for a while, but I've never actually used it anyway. So, I mean, it's a project. It'll just have to wait a little longer to get finished. So, aside from needing to fix this problem with this machine, there's some really great things about these machines, and there's some things that I don't really like. And I've mentioned before that I'm probably gonna send these machines down the road at some point because I don't really use them that often. So I want to talk about some of the things that I like and some of the things that I don't like. What I'm telling you is my opinion and how these machines work or don't work for me and for the particular uses that I need sewing machines for. You may find these machines to be perfect for you, or they may be the worst machine ever. You need to look at what you want to do and what these machines' capabilities are and make a decision based on that. I'm just giving you my opinion. So first and foremost, I have around a dozen sewing machines right now, and without question, by far, these are the smoothest operating machines that I've ever used. They sew like butter. You know, I mostly use my Sailrite portable walking foot machine, and I've said a number of times that things like a truck. It rides rough and makes a lot of noise, but it does things that I need it to do that none of my other machines can do as well. But in terms of just enjoying the peaceful experience of sewing something, you can't beat these machines. And they are quite capable. This is a bag that I made with the 260, oh gosh, 4 years ago, maybe more now. And it's held up beautifully, and it worked very well for that project. A lot of my earlier, like way older videos were made on the 260. And it does a good job for what it is. However, as you can see in the yoga bag video I did recently, it struggles a little bit with the materials that I typically use. It's just not designed to sew, 1000 denier cordura and webbing and things like that. It can do it just like any domestic machine of this era. It's totally capable of doing it, but it is a bit of a struggle at times. The physical appearance of these machines is also very attractive. The paintwork is gorgeous. However, as an example, this enamel or paint or whatever it is, I just bumped into this with my MacBook when I was moving it on the table over here and took a big chunk of paint off. That's not necessarily a criticism of the machine, it's a criticism of me being a klutz, but if they were less beautiful, I wouldn't worry so much about knocking into them, which I'm going to do. I have a history of knocking machines around and over. So if you want a beautiful machine, again, these are hard to beat, they're gorgeous. If you're like me and don't take great care to avoid hitting them with things, then that might not be ideal. As I mentioned when I showed the table on the 360, the engineering behind these machines is very nice and well done. On the other hand, parts availability is not that great. With any vintage domestic machine, there are lots of parts that may no longer be available new and may be impossible to find used. But, Singers are just everywhere, so you can usually find parts for most Singer machines, especially the more common ones. These just aren't as numerous as the more common Singers and maybe some other brands, and the parts are a little bit harder to get. These also use a different bobbin. So this is the bobbin for the Pfaff 260 and 360. And this is a class 66 bobbin that is in the Singer 201. Let's see, the Singer 348 I have. A couple other machines, I think. And then this is a class 15 bobbin that is used in the Sailrite LS1, my Thompson Mini Walking Foot, which is the same machine, and my Singer 237. If you've seen the Why Do I Have So Many Sewing Machines video, if you haven't, you should go check it out. I mentioned that if I were going to pare myself down to one machine, it would actually be two machines, and that would be the Sailrite and the Singer 237. And one of the reasons why is they both use this bobbin. And in that video I explain why that's important to me, but I'm not going to go into it here. But anyway, so I have several machines that use this bobbin and several machines that use this bobbin, and two, if these were both working, that use the Pfaff, exclusive bobbin. If you only have one sewing machine, that's not really an issue. If you're like me and you like to switch between sewing machines frequently, having an oddball bobbin, just confuses things. What's most potentially confusing is that the 66 and the Pfaff bobbins look really, close in size, but they're really not. So I could see that I could potentially get confused and try to put the Pfaff bobbin into a 66 bobbin case or vice versa, which wouldn't work. It would probably be evident pretty quickly that it doesn't work. I don't think it would hurt anything, but it would just be kind of a nuisance of, oh, I've got a loaded bobbin for the Pfaff with the thread that I need. Let me just throw it in. Oh, it's the wrong bobbin. It's not, it's a 66. It doesn't work. A minor nuisance thing, but, it is an issue that I consider. The same is true of the needle. Pfaff has their own needle system that's slightly different size from the standard needle system that basically all other domestic sewing machines use, I think. Don't quote me on that. I can't really get the camera to focus on this, but there's just the slightest difference in the length of the needles. The long one on your left is the standard needle, and the shorter one is the Pfaff needle. This longer one came out of the 360, which I've sewn with that needle in it. So you can use a standard needle in these machines. Whether or not you should, I don't know. Obviously Pfaff designed it to use their needle system. So again, that might be an issue if you really do need to use the Pfaff needles. You're probably not going to find them as easily as the standard size needles. With both these machines, I've had an issue where the needle pulls out of the needle bar when I'm sewing thicker materials, heavier material. Maybe you could replace the thumb screw with an actual screw and screw it down tighter, but I don't have that problem with any of the other machines that I use, including the vintage Singers. Or I haven't encountered that problem yet, but I've encountered it on both of these machines. I don't know why that is. These machines come with this kind of circular slide rule thing. This is to tell you the settings you need to set all the various dials to in order to get the embroidery stitches that are shown. It's on both sides here. One of my machines came with this, the other one did not. If the embroidery feature is something that's important to you, and you're purchasing one of these used, you'll definitely want to see if that comes with the machine. I don't know if they're available or not. So those are my thoughts on these machines. They're utterly gorgeous. They sew beautifully. I'm just not sure that they're the right machine for me at this point. But if you are in the market for a vintage machine to do a lot of, kind of a wide range of sewing from thin materials to thick materials, then these might be a very good choice. In my area right now, there's a 260, the flatbed, on sale in the local classifieds with an asking price of $300. And that's what I've seen these priced at over the years, kind of in that general area. And as I said, I've got more than $300 into that one between the purchase price and the repairs and stuff. So they're not cheap, and if you find one for 25 bucks at a thrift store, I would definitely snap it up. A lot of my reservations about these machines are because they tend to, at least have asking prices of pretty high prices. I don't know what they actually sell for, of course. With the benefit of hindsight and having scored some pretty good machines at thrift stores and the like, I think the Singer 237 is 99% as good as these at a much lower price. Even if you pay, I've seen those listed for $100 and I paid 20 for mine, but I think that's a better choice. And again, for me, the Class 15 bobbin, which is higher capacity and can be used on the machine that I use the most, so having that ability to switch back and forth makes that a much better choice than one of these, again, just for me. Sorry I don't have more information to add to the dearth of information that there is about these machines. I hope that there was something helpful in this video if you're interested in this machine. If you have questions or comments, you can post them in the comments section below. If I can answer them, I will, and if not, maybe somebody else can. I'm hard at work on the upcoming backpack tutorial, so if you're into or want to sew your own backpack and you're not subscribed, hit the subscribe button. If you like this video, it really helps me for you to click the like button. If you have comments, I'd love to hear them. And yeah, I think that's it. Thanks for watching.